All right, 4:45 having arrived, I'm going to call the Education Finance meeting to order. And members, what you have are a number of bills, and I will say that Representative Woodard, did you receive an email of this bill at some point?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the record, and I would have had the opportunity on the floor had the Speaker given me the opportunity to thank you for ensuring this committee is well run and the Republican minority is treated very well by your committee. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Representative Woodard.
Mr. Chair, being a
Erickson.
long-termer, I know that Shannon is always doing her job well, and I read it last night. Thank you.
Very good. Representative Hertaz.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just want to let you know that I had to do a copy machine service this morning to change the toner and make 77 pages print out so I could review it.
Thank you very much. Well, I bring that up because the bills on the agenda today, all except one. And so that is, I think, House File 2693. So, isn't that the one, or is it 2568? I think. I'm sorry, House File 2568 is not in the bill. So I thought if I have in the hearing here today, also might save time later on down the road too as we look at the overall bill starting tomorrow. So, and we'll talk more about that tomorrow. So with that, I am going to Representative Persell here. Okay? We do have a quorum here, so we could do that. Mr. Strom, I thought it might be a good idea for him just to talk about the tax bill that was signed and that local optional revenue. We're very familiar with the concept on the location equity revenue, but Mr. Strom, are you ready to give a little brief on what happened there?
Mr. Chair, members, thank you. Chapter 150 was enacted already. That's the first tax bill that passed this session. A couple of provisions in that directly affect the work of this committee. The largest of those was the change to the location equity revenue formula. As this committee remembers from our discussion about that earlier this year, there were essentially, the location equity revenue was $424 per pupil for districts in the metro area, $212 for districts in greater Minnesota with more than 2,000 people, or 2,000 students rather. The revenue in the Senate bill essentially got changed to $424 for all districts, and the name was changed as well to local optional revenue, from location equity to local optional revenue. The net result is the same as for the metro area districts. Some districts in greater Minnesota will pick up additional revenue because of this. Other districts may see additional equalization but no additional revenue. And a third class of districts with higher referendums and larger tax bases won't see any change in the same manner as for the metro districts. One other effect of this, anything that changes the amount of referendum revenue authority that a district has can change the ratio between the 5th and the 95th percentile. And for that reason, each district's equity revenue is also impacted by this in small ways. The Senate put out a very nice district-by-district printout on the total effect of the change, but you will notice that there are a few districts that were getting the full amount of location equity revenue before that have no change in their location equity revenue, but now have a very small change in their equity revenue, and this is because the relationship between the 5th and the 95th percentile changed. So, Mr. Chair, the fiscal cost of that, this starts in fiscal 16, roughly $20+ million per year in state aid, and corresponding levy impact of about the same amount of about 20-some million per year as well. But again, a change that's first effective fiscal year 16. Okay,
so that is the tax committees at work. Just a quick update on that. So we've got the minutes. Who would like to approve the minutes of the March 20th, 2014 meeting? Representative Moran moves the approval of the March 20th, 2014 minutes. Any debate on that? Not, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. A motion does prevail. The amendments are approved. So thank you, Mr. Strom, for that quick update. We are going to move now to Representative Fischer then. Is Representative Persell here? No, I don't see him. Okay. So and I think we can do both of these. Okay. So I think what we will do, because both of these involve Dr. Upke, so if you would come forward and you speak to these bills, but House File 2290, would someone care to move that bill? Representative Dabney moves House File 2290. Representative Fischer, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Committee. I appreciate the opportunity to be before you again today. This bill is an update from last year. This is to transfer the EMED property from the East Metro Integration District to Roseville. There's just a couple of updates that this is doing from last year's bill. One, it's rolling the dates forward to make it happen, and it's also making clear that this is going to be used for an interdistrict integration type program. I have with me Jean Lubke, who's the Executive Director from EMED, to help explain things. And also I have Sherry Thompson, who's the Business Manager of Roseville here, who can help answer any other additional questions.
Very good. Dr. Lubke.
Thank you, Chair Marquardt, members of the committee. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you about EMID and our desire to convey our schools. My name is Jean Lubke. I'm the Executive Director of the East Metro Integration District, also known as EMID. We are a collaborative integration district with 10 member districts in the East Metro area, and you have a handout with a map and the member districts identified. For nearly 15 years, EMID has operated 2 integration schools, Harambee Community Cultures Environmental School, a K-5 year-round school in Maplewood, and the Crosswinds Art and Science, a 6th to 10th grade year-round school in Woodbury. These schools are in buildings that were bonded for by the state for the purpose of integration. These are magnet schools that voluntarily draw students from all of our member districts for the purpose of having an educational experience in an integrated setting. While the schools serve their purpose of providing an integrated learning experience for the students and staff in the school, there was not an infrastructure established to share that learning and impact back within the schools of the 10 member districts. And while the 2 schools were clearly benefiting those who were directly participating, the amount of time and resources needed to run the schools diminished the time and resources that the small EMID staff and Joint Powers Board could spend on integration efforts across the member districts to help them increase equity. Over the past funding cycles, the uncertainty of the integration revenue also caused the member districts to be nervous about continuing to operate the schools. As a collaborative, the member districts participated in long-range strategic planning, and in the winter of 2013, the EMID board decided to move away from the business of running the schools and to find districts which were willing and able to continue the schools. Roseville and Perpich emerged as districts which were willing to continue the running of Harambee and Crosswinds as multi-district integration schools in keeping with the original legislation. The Perpich Center was particularly qualified to continue the arts focus for Crosswinds, and no other districts were willing to continue the school programming, although others were interested in obtaining the buildings for other purposes. With a new focus on achievement in the achievement and integration legislation, the member districts believed that EMID will best meet their needs by direct service to the districts rather than by running schools. As a collaborative, we're having cross-district professional development and leadership discussions about the barriers to achievement. We're collaboratively identifying the measurements to determine the impact of integration work within our districts. We're collaboratively beginning a project to create a solid pipeline for getting students and adults of color into the classroom. Together we share our best practices, and this year we're focused on sharing best practices in early learning, college and career readiness, family engagement, and equity and cultural competence. We're working to define the new EMID. We strongly believe that an integrated education experience is an important option for students to have, and these schools offer wonderful experiential education in the arts and environment in an integrated setting for the students. But running and managing schools isn't in the best use of EMID's resources if the goal is to close the achievement gap for all East Metro schools. Roseville Public School and the Perpich Center are managing the two schools this year and are showing that they have the interest and capability to grow and sustain these schools for the students in the East Metro area. Each have brought important expertise, efficiencies, and other assets to be able to sustain the long-term future of these schools. In November, the EMID Joint Powers Board, comprised of representatives from each of the 10-member districts, unanimously passed the legislative platform supporting the continued operation of the schools and of the conveyance of Harambee to Roseville and of Crosswinds to the Perpich Center. We ask that the legislation to convey these schools to these districts be approved so the students may continue to have their integrated experience and that the EMID districts may move forward to collaborate on our achievement and equity work for all 103,000 students in our member districts. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you very much. Representative Fischer, have you got another?
Yes, I have one more person, Sherry Thompson, who is the business manager from Roseville School District.
Welcome, Ms. Thompson. Please proceed.
Mr. Chairperson and community members, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. My name is Sherry Thompson, and I'm the business manager for the Roseville Area School District. Superintendent Tyne had hoped to be here today. Unfortunately, he is out of town, but sends his regards. I am here to speak in support of House File 2290. Roseville Area Schools was one of the original 3 school districts that collaborated to envision and build Harambee Elementary School for purposes of integrating urban and suburban students in an inclusive learning environment. Roseville Area Schools and Superintendent Tyne have been an integral part of the integration collaborative as it grew from 3 districts to 10 districts over the last 2 decades. During the same time, Roseville Area Schools demographics have changed significantly, which has only strengthened the district's commitment to the inter-district integration magnet experience for students in the East Metro area. We came before you a year ago seeking your support of what was then House File 833, authorizing the transfer of the facility to School District 623. When the legislature failed to act on the conveyance, Roseville entered into a management contract with EMID to operate Harambee School for the 13-14 school year. Roseville Schools hired the majority of the school staff previously employed at Harambee. The transition has been seamless, and Harambee operates as one of the Roseville sites. Enrollment continues to be strong, serving 427 students in grades K through 6. Roseville is an E through 12 school district with an approved integration plan, and therefore the language required to transfer the conveyance is a bit more straightforward than what is required of Perpich Center for Arts Education. Our status as an approved integration district also allows us to transport students to and from Harambee Elementary School and receive the reimbursements for these costs from the state desegregation funding. Again, I'm just trying to point out the differences in the language that's required for the 2 facilities. As Representative Fischer had stated, there have been some minor housekeeping changes made to the language in the original House file from last year. Again, I want to thank you for your continued commitment to integration, your careful consideration of the conveyance of the integration magnet programs and their facilities, and the opportunity to speak with you today.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to testify for or against House File 2290? Not. Representative Fischer, any comments?
Chair Committee, thank you for your opportunity to present this again, and I just ask for the support to keep this moving forward. Thank you.
Very good, Chair. We'll lay over House File 2290. Members, we're going to move next to Representative Ward's House File 592, and this is for informational only. We actually heard both of these bills last year, and they both were sent to capital investment. Representative Fischer reintroduced the bill this year, 2290. That's why we're hearing this officially. House File 592 is still actually in the possession of capital investment, so we're just hearing this one for informational purposes. So Representative Ward.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'd like to review House File 952 with you for possible layover. I understand a possible layover for inclusion in the Omnibus Education Budget Bill. As you may recall, this committee approved House File 592 last year, but now it's before you with the delete all amendment that I'd like to be adopted in order to update and clarify some issues with the bill.
So Representative Ward, we cannot adopt it for informational only, but what we're now working off of, members, is a DE2 amendment. And this is for informational purposes, so we can't adopt that. So everything will be referring to the DE2 amendment on this. So very good. Representative Ward.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. As you know, the purpose of House File 592 is to convey the Crosswinds Arts and Science Integration Magnet School, located in my legislative district, to the Perpich Center for Arts Education, and to give the Perpich Center access to specific K-12 education funding categories in order to manage the school for the 2014-15 school year and beyond. Members, this bill makes sense. We have a local consortium of school districts which makes up the East Metro Integration District, EMID, and now unanimously offers this proposal. EMID currently owns the school building, which was built with state general obligation bonds, and has been running a year-round grades 6 through 10 arts and science integration school. EMID believes that the school and its sister school, Harambee, should continue. EMID put out an RFP for the building and school operations more than a year ago and selected the Perpich Center to run Crosswinds. As they have already demonstrated this year under a temporary management agreement, this state agency has the capability to run the program, grow it for the benefit of the EMID schools, and take best practices from this school to share throughout the state. Mr. Chair, here today with me is to provide a little more background and better explanation. The successful future of Crosswinds are representatives from EMID and the Perpich Center.
Okay, and thank you, and I thank you, Representative Ward. We did hear this, a lot of this last year. So I guess I would be interested to know how the DE2 amendment differs from what was brought forth last year. I guess I'd be most interested in that, and either Mr. Strom or Ms. Mackert or whoever might want to do that, because like I said, we've heard a lot of the background on this. I don't know if we need to repeat that today. So, Mr. Strom.
Mr. Chair, very quickly, I think the primary changes in the way that the funding works, the very first section of the DE2 amendment, which is also reflected in the omnibus bill, is that in order to get around an issue of declining enrollment, for the first 3 years, students who attend Crosswinds will not generate declining enrollment in their home district should that district be declining. That's the primary change. That language was prompted by an earlier fiscal note than the one that's in your packet now that suggested that there might be some significant enrollment shifts. There were some methodological issues with that fiscal note as well, but this language essentially takes care of that issue, and so it makes, when you look at the fiscal note, it makes a negative, puts this slightly under the current law budget by about $81,000 a year. The transfer and conveyance remains roughly the same. There's a little bit of clarification in terms of how the pupil transportation funding will work and in how the students will apply to the Crosswinds program. Essentially what happens is the Perpich Center is given the authority to act as a school district under both open enrollment and for purposes of filing an integration plan. And so those are the changes, technical changes compared to last year. The substance is essentially the same, that the legislature would convey the facility from EMID to the Perpich Center, and it would be operated as the Crosswinds School in the same manner that the school is currently operated. One last change I could mention, last year's bill also had some language related to the transitioning of the employees. That, just as in the Roseville situation, that's already happened. The Perpich Center already has employees now that's staffing Crosswinds School, so there's no need for language regarding employee transfer.
All right, Ms. Macker.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, House staff, it is a pleasure to be before you again this session to advocate continued conveyance of Crosswinds Arts and Science School to the Perpich Center for Arts Education so that we may use the power of arts education to engage students in lifelong success. As Representative Ward indicated and Dr. Lukey, we, in the absence of completion of conveyance in the last session, we entered into an operational agreement with the East Metro Integration District. We received final approval from MMB in August. We opened school on September 3rd. In less than 3 months, we grew from 0 students to 174 students, and our retention is solid. The parallels remain the same, 60% students of color, 58% free and reduced, and 30% special education. Our focus on creating an integrated learning community with high expectations of students, teachers, and staff is working. Our projected growth calls for 50 new students per year over the next 3 years, and we are on track to meet those goals. Sustainability of Crosswinds will come in the form of innovative programming, leveraging people and managerial resources, which we have done quite significantly this year, and obtaining alternative sources of funding along with our external partners. We have an advisory group representing the communities of Crosswinds, leaders, parents, social service professionals, and various representatives. And we have foundation and community leaders who have been coming on board to also provide assistance because they have interest in student achievement in the state of Minnesota. Those include Ramla Bile of the Minneapolis Foundation, Bobby Cordano of the Wilder Foundation, and former St. Paul Mayor Jim Scheibel. We will continue to add other members to deal with what Crosswinds was intended to do, and that was to challenge an integration crisis. Solid evidence showed in our due diligence last year that the model is effective and in full support of the member districts of the East Metro Integration District, and with continued legislative approval, the Perpich Center is ready to move forward in service to education. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you. Do you have further testifiers?
It's really a good bill.
Yeah, I think so too.
If there are any questions?
I don't see Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, this is really for Perpich Center. Hi.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Chair.
Representative.
So one board will operate both schools, is that correct?
Ms.
Mr.
Macker?
Chair, Representative Erickson, yes, one board will operate both the schools, the Perpich Center for Arts Education Governing Board.
And Mr.
Representative
Chair,
Erickson.
but the funds will be kept separate, correct?
Ms. Macker?
Mr. Chair, Representative Erickson, yes. In our bill, we have indicated that funds will be kept separate and will be managed in the same way that school districts manage the UFAR system with MDE.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Any other questions? Anyone from the audience care to testify for or against House File 592? Not? Someone want to testify? Just thumbs up. I see a thumbs up. Very good. So we'll denote 2 thumbs up in the crowd there in the minutes. All right. Oh, there's more. All right. All right. Fairly unanimous. All right. Representative Ward, any closing comments?
Thank you very much for your support. We're very much looking forward to making this a solid commitment and moving it forward.
Very good. Thank you so much. All right. We are going to move, Representative Persell is here. We'll move back to House File 1876.
Wrong a little bit there, Mr. Chair. I apologize, I can't get it back where everybody can see it. Put it on the chair. Thank you, Representative. Yeah, that's a good idea. That chair over there might work.
Put it in the first pew over there.
There we go.
There we go.
Very
Cool. All right.
All right, Representative Persell, anyone care to move? Representative Anzels moves House File 1876. Representative Persell?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, committee members. Well, it may be the shortest bill of the day, I don't know. A couple of lines here, but 1876 is a simple bill looking to appropriate $50,000 in 2015, fiscal 2015, to the Commissioner of Education for a grant to Headwaters Science Center for the specific purpose of hands-on science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM education. And it has a little bit of background, Mr. Chair, and I'll be as brief as I can. And I do have the director of the Headwaters Science Center, Susan Joy, with me today. Come on down, Susan. But you can see from the map that we have, and some of you may be seen that before, because this isn't the first time we've been here looking for some funding. We were trying to build a new building for the Science Center. They operate down Main Street at Bemidji out of an old J.C. Penney building. And we aren't here for funding for a building. We're looking for $50,000 for this STEM education effort. And this is stuff they do. And in 1994, this Science Center was established by a couple of retired Bemidji State University professors, and both science professors that I had as an alum of Bemidji State, and they have a heck of a science program up there. And just the effort is that we've known for some time that we need more and more and more science education, and you can see and read about that to your heart's content, and then some, and perhaps your heart's discontent, as you see how science gets attention or inattention today, and the need is greater than ever. What we have at the Headwaters Science Center is, I won't say it's like Bill Nye the Science Guy on steroids, but it's Bill Nye front and center, and the projects in there they teach kids of quite a range of ages about what science is, about what physics is, that indeed the Earth goes around the sun and not the contrary, as Copernicus got excommunicated for, right, for saying that. So with that said, Mr. Chair, and your indulgence, I'd like Ms. Susan Joy to say a few words about the Science Center. The map shows the impact of the Headwaters Science Center.
Very good. Thank you very much. Ms. Joy, welcome to the committee. And if you would tell the committee what that $50,000 would be used for and how that would benefit students in the area.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. I appreciate your time today. As a side note, I am so passionate about the Headwaters Science Center that I moved here from Arizona, which seems foolish in light of the winter weather. But here I am, and I'm very passionate about this small science center. There are only a handful of science centers of this size in small rural communities making a huge impact. We have over 25,000 visitors, including youth and school children, coming through our doors every year, being provided hands-on opportunities, being shown that science isn't an abstract idea that happens in a laboratory, but happens every day in the things we do. I heard someone say that science has to do with hunting, one of our favorite activities in the Northwoods. It has to do with looking at the weather and making predictions. It has to do with that math test that you might not want to do, but if you do well on that math test, it could lead to a career in a manufacturing sector. We have several great manufacturers in the Northwoods. So science education is important. $50,000 for us doesn't seem like that much, but it would have a huge impact. Beltrami County, where the Science Center is located, is one of the poorest counties in the state, with 20% of the population below the poverty line. So $50,000 is a huge impact and would allow us to go to more schools, more tribal Head Starts, more low-income Title I schools, and do demonstrations on combustion, cryogenics, raptors, pushes, and pulls. When I say things like thermodynamics, that goes over everyone's head. But if I say, let's explode a hydrogen balloon, now that's exciting, and that's science, and that's what the gift would do. That's what this funding could do.
Thank you. Any questions? I'm sorry, Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry I missed your name.
Susan Joy.
Ms. Joy. I'm looking at your charts here, and this is all very good. Are any of those school districts on the map tending to become part or all STEM schools, so that this would really be an addition to their education? Or is it what you provide, student tours and a glimpse of STEM and then some teacher training? I'm just not sure of the role that you play.
Ms. Joy.
Absolutely. Chairman and Representative Erickson, what we do is we tailor our programs to what the teacher needs in his or her classroom. Sometimes that means professional development. Sometimes it means helping them make connections for their students. Sometimes it means augmenting what they're already doing so well. We would never replace the job of a teacher. We feel that teachers are the most important professionals. We assist them with their needs so that their teaching dollars can be stretched further and make a greater impact on their student achievement.
And one last question, Mr. Chair. Then who pays for the transportation to your center?
The school district.
Okay, thank you.
Representative Hertas.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Representative Persell, Ms. Joy. As we sit in this committee, we hear a lot of requests, and I just wanted to comment, thank you for not rounding up to the nearest $1 million.
You're welcome.
Representative Myra.
Mr. Chair, Ms. Joy, what age group are you targeting with your work?
Ms. Joy.
Chairman, Representative Myra, we target pre-K through 6th grade. And we would like to expand our programming to middle school, as we know that in middle school, kids drop out of the science, engineering, math, technology pipeline in favor of things like sports and the opposite sex. And so we would like to encourage middle school youth to stay engaged in those topics. Thank you.
Representative Anzels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, members, the fundraising that these folks do in Bemidji is absolutely impressive and unprecedented. Were it not for the fundraising that is done in the community, most of this wouldn't happen. And $50,000, it's another non-silk stocking appropriation. And I kind of, as you know, I kind of like that. And lastly, these are small, rural, poor districts whose kids can hopefully avail themselves of this program. And these are school districts where, because of numbers and sections and the availability of classroom teachers and kids, anything that augments those kids that are interested in science and technology and engineering, I think will go a long way to equalizing the situation between rural, urban kids and the availability of science and technology with the availability of that in other parts of the state. So this program has my highest endorsement.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a question for the author and/or the testifier. How much assistance, if any, do you get from the Minnesota Science Museum?
Ms. Joy.
Chairperson, Representative McDonald, we receive no funding or support of any kind from the Science Museum of Minnesota or from any other science centers operating in the state.
Representative McDonald.
Mr. Chairman, the reason I asked, in the Legacy Committee last session, the Science Museum came to us and they gave their presentation, and they shared with us that they go throughout the state to the schools and the districts, especially in outstate, and share with them some of the great things they're doing. And I think it's a great program because it puts to work what they're doing in St. Paul and brings it in location to areas that aren't so lucky to come down. So I'm surprised that boy, they're not working with you or some of the funding or anything that to working with you and bringing that to the students up in that northern Minnesota. So it just surprises me because I know that they did testify that they share that with the rest of the state, especially the students in outstate, and it looks like the author has something to add.
Representative Persell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To that point, I don't think it's been said yet, but the Headwaters Science Center is integrated with the Science Museum of Minnesota. In that if you're a member of Headwaters Science Center, you can get in free to the Science Museum in Minnesota and vice versa. So they are integrated, but yeah, I'm not aware that they're up there doing in the schools what Headwaters Science Center is doing. I don't want to, I'm not going to say that, I don't know that's positive, but our Science Center up there is doing most of the work in that area anyway.
Representative Anzels.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, the Headwaters Science Center is probably a good half day's drive in a fast car from the Science Museum. So if you're thinking of hands-on, on-the-ground assistance to the center, I'm sure that occurs, but it certainly doesn't happen on a very regular basis because it is a long ways away.
Is there anyone here in the audience that would like to testify for or against House File 1876? Seeing none, Ms. Joy, thank you so much. Representative Persell, any last words?
Appreciate the consideration, Mr. Chair, member. Thank you.
Chair will lay over House File 1876. Thank you so much. Our next bill on the agenda, Representative FitzSimmons. And when he's coming forward, any committee member here, I will give a committee award to if you write up a bill that provides silk stocking revenue. Just for Representative Anzels. Just this. What?
Then I'll quit.
Okay, take what? No, we deal with that right.
Mr. Chair, I think there is a song that's titled that.
We need to get Representative Anzels even more worked up a little bit from day to day.
1946.
Who would like to move House File 3185?
I'd be happy to move.
Representative McDonald moves House File 3185. Representative FitzSimmons, thank you so much for being here.
Yes, thank you, Chair Marquardt and the committee, and pleasure to be here. Have not been a prolific bill writer, so this is actually my first bill that I've presented that I've authored, and probably my last and only, so that's quite the achievement. And I really appreciate Representative Mariani taking the time to meet with me and hearing out the issue. I had originally presented this bill as part of the location equity revenue, but I think it's very applicable to the equity region also, and there's a bill in to expand the equity region to cover what last year's location equity revenue covered, which was not only the equity region right now is if the district office is in the 7-county metro. And what last year's location equity revenue for the first time introduced was if there was any amount of that school district in the 7-county metro. And the map that's going around, I think is, and it's my great audio-visual aid here. I didn't have, like Representative Persell, a nice tag board to put it up on. But what it shows in the purple is the St. Michael Albertville School District, and it, under any definition that takes into account a district that has some of its area in the 7-county metro, the St. Michael Albertville district, since it doesn't have any territory actually in there, would be by far the closest district to the core metro region that would fall outside of any of those definitions. It's about, at its center, it's about 30 miles from downtown Minneapolis. Many of the other districts that would be included under an expanded definition would be, some of them 50 to 60 miles at the center of their districts. And the reason that that's important is because of its density and location, it ends up as, depending on the year, usually one of the bottom 5 state funded schools in the state because of narrowly missing nearly every definition of funding that it was ever created by the state of Minnesota. So the language that I found that would help that out is, again, that I put in for the location equity revenue, but I have a new bill being drafted for the equity region since the location equity revenue was expanded to statewide, is to also use a or for the 7-county metro to be or the federally defined urbanized area. That's, for those of you that are not that familiar, it's the census every 10 years, then the federal government defines as contiguous urbanized area of the metro area. So of the Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington area, it takes what's considered urbanized area out from that. And while some major regions in the 7-county metro area are not actually inside that federal definition, the St. Michael Albertville School District would fit in that. And so it would put it in the category that I think it's much more properly placed as a metro school. We obviously deal with all the issues of teacher retention and cost of living that we have to compete for teachers and everything else with our neighboring schools, and yet just because of the fact that we're not in a county that's in the 7-county metro region, we don't qualify for that funding, that the metro rate funding. We get a rural school funding even though we don't really fit many of the measures of that. And so that is what my House File 3185 would address. And again, because of it, I had originally done it as a location equity revenue, but because of the change of that statewide, I have a bill at the revisers to put that in on the equity region, to combine that with House File 2588 that was heard before, that would define that region as any school that's within that 7-county metro, to also include any school that's within the federal urbanized area, which one school that it adds is St. Michael Albertville. And I think it's, by any justification, fits all the definitions of a metro school, and I think it's just a arbitrary geography that would hold it out, and I would think a good policy to see that rectified.
Well, thank you, Representative FitzSimmons, for bringing this forward, and you and Representative Zerwas have the kind of same principles, and there is going to be something in the bill, or that is in the bill, that deals with this area, and we're going to talk more about that tomorrow. But Mr. Strom, did you want to go over this spreadsheet right here that all of you should have, just looking at kind of what different approaches mean? So, Mr. Strom.
Mr. Chair, thank you. Representative FitzSimmons' maps were an excellent way of portraying this. This is a way to do this by district, by county to show you what each of these different definitions could mean. So the way this printout is oriented, each school district's listed in numeric order with its county name of where the home office is following that. Then the 4 columns of data that are in the middle are the ones to look at here. And it says yes on the printout if the home office is in the 7-county metro area. You can see there's 48 districts there that have their home office in the metro area. Those are the ones that are currently used in the equity revenue definition. The next set of count would key off the metro definition that Representative FitzSimmons brings to you today, this Minneapolis, St. Paul, Bloomington metropolitan area. The statistical area includes a couple of counties in Wisconsin as well, but for the Minnesota counties, that makes 11, and you can see the ones that are listed here. So those are sort of the 2 definitions if you go by home office. Then another way of looking at this is you could look at whether that school district had any area within any of the metro counties, and you can look in the 7-county area there or the 11-county area. And the ones that are added by the 11-county are Chisago, Isanti, Sherburne, and Wright. Those are the 4 counties that are added. And so if you look on the printout on the first page, for example, at the Sauk Rapids or Foley School District, even though their home office is in Benton, if you look to the last column of data in the middle of the page, you can see that it says yes there. So that means they both have just a little bit of area in one of those 4 counties, either in Isanti or Sherburne, and I don't know with those 2 counties which it would be. And then the last 3 columns show the current amount of equity revenue that each school district gets on a per pupil basis, so you can see where that's currently at. So, Mr. Chair, this is just another way of presenting the information that Representative FitzSimmons did on the map to give you some guidance about which districts might be included, depending on which district you use.
Very good. And members, tomorrow, as we go over the bill, we'll talk more about the specific plan that's being used there. But you did mention in that one part where there's 2 Wisconsin counties that are included. Mr. Straub, there is no funding going to Wisconsin in the Representative FitzSimmons bill, is there?
Mr. Chair, that's correct.
All right, very good.
I would never do such a thing, Chair.
Representative Erickson.
Mr. Chair, I think I'll wait with my question because I noticed Representative Greiling was not very happy about losing location equity, and I know she worked on that for many years, as did Representative Sikora and a few other suburban legislators from the past, so I'll hold.
Okay, very good. Anyone in the audience that would care to testify for or against House File 3185? I see none. Representative FitzSimmons, any last comments? Thank you.
No, I just, not getting grilled, it's really a letdown to everything I was expecting from... No, I just appreciate your consideration, Chair Marquardt, and all the members, and I hope this, can add another tool to be looked at to make sure we're getting kind of the proper definition of what's an urban metro district and what's a rural district. So I appreciate it. Thank you, everyone.
Representative FitzSimmons, thank you so much for bringing this forward, and Chair will lay over House File 3185. Very good. Are we ready for the next one? 28. All right. House File 2861, Representative Isaacson. And would someone care to move House File 2861? Representative Mariani moves House File 2861.
So he's going to talk about this? You can't move it. Okay.
All right. So we have a DE1 amendment that he is going to talk to, although we are not moving it.
Right.
And why is that? All right. It was not in by the deadline, so we are not moving this amendment. But we will discuss it. So, Representative Isaacson, what's in this late amendment?
It's actually... Mr. Chair, thank you first of all for hearing this, and it is consistent with language you've already seen, as I am maybe getting roasted here a little bit, and I appreciate that. What it is it's the language that you've already seen and I think has perhaps been considered for your omnibus bill. there was a misunderstanding between, it was done on the, if you see the date on the amendment, it's 3/17. Apparently it wasn't transmitted to your LA, but was transmitted to you for that purpose. Long story. Making it complicated, this is what it does, if you don't mind me just getting right to the meat of the matter. My concern is, in framing this discussion, I've been looking at career and technical education. I've been trying to follow the lead of Representative Reinert and others that have been doing this for longer than I have, and I saw where I thought there was just maybe one more piece we need to add to this puzzle as we continue to look at how we're going to reinvest in career and technical education. A lot of what we've seen in the task force and other studies I've read, national studies that have been done, and give us a really nice 10,000 and 5,000 foot view of the current state of career and technical education in Minnesota. But what my bill is trying to do is give us the 5-foot view. Literally. I would like to see an inventory done of every school district, of the current programs they have, 6 through 12, of the resources they're using to conduct those programs, and perhaps even what resources aren't being used, and then also what resources are we using outside of the K through 12 system in terms of co-ops, or well, that's not necessarily outside, but or post-secondary education to also conduct career and technical education, to give us a real count, so to speak, and really when we're deciding next year, as I hope that this body will, regardless of who might be in control, that we'll look at reinvesting in vocational, or excuse me, career and technical education. This is going to give us a real hands-on count of what we have, what's being used, what's mothballed, where do we need to look at to reach our requirements. And so that's the essence of what my bill does. You're going to see that we talk a little bit about listing the areas that we need to look at, such as post-secondary integration districts, and you'll see the word alignment, and Representative Reinert really helped me and understand what that word can mean in a legal sense for us. And all I'm actually trying to do is literally just assess what is currently going on to give me the most accurate snapshot of the state of career and technical education in Minnesota right now, so that next year when we come back, we know what assets we have, and we can make intelligent and prudent financial decisions going forward on reinvesting in career and technical education.
Thank you very much, Representative Isaacson. I guess I see here on line 2.3 of this amendment we can't move. There's a blank there on 2.3, so I wonder if someone from the department would be willing to come down and speak to this and maybe talk about what extent or scope of work would need to be done on this type of a survey.
Mr. Chair, before Darren
Representative
gets started,
Isaacson.
we have had a discussion, and I've been working hand in hand with the department, and we've agreed that $150 billion is all we need. And so, or excuse me, just kidding, $150,000 is all we need. A lot of people choking their drinks. Yeah, $150,000.
We do round to the millions.
Give them the resources they need. So.
Okay, Mr. Cordy, welcome.
Mr. Chair, members, Darren Cordy with the Minnesota Department of Education. Yes, I wanted to thank Representative Isaacson for really working with us throughout this process. The $150,000 would buy basically 2 half FTEs, so one FTE for purposes of counting, but it would actually be 2 people for half a year to do this work, and then some additional money in there for IT costs, the cost of creating the report, and just associated expenses that would come along with that, such as travel expenses. We think that these folks would probably have to actually go out into the districts a fair amount to do this work. So that was kind of the dollar figure that we had come up with.
Representative Isaacson,
yes, sir.
Or maybe Mr. Cordy could answer this. I mean, just how thorough is this? I mean, is it just going to be sending things out to schools, to getting survey and reports back? Or, Mr. Cordy, you mentioned actually going out. I mean, just, I know you're trying to get down to the 5-foot level, but, you know, I mean, it looks like you're trying to gather some information, and I just seems, I don't know how elaborate you're going to get on that. I mean, what's going to be the final product? What's it going to tell us necessarily?
The goal of the legislation is going to tell us really 3 things. I want to know every program that we're using for career and technical education by district in every district in the state. I want to know what major equipment you're using, and what I mean by that is, like, if there's bandsaws or real high price. I don't want to know all the paper clips or how many spoons we have in our family consumer science, but like ovens, or what do we have? Where are our needs and where are our assets at? And then the final part is not only resources in terms of equipment, but also resources in terms of who we're partnering with. So in some cases, you'll find that they'll partner with a post-secondary school. I want to know if that's been filling in the hole of where we haven't been able to provide services, and they are, so we have an idea of that.
Okay, and so I guess, so this, you will gather that information, and then as the department, is there anything more they do with it? Just gather the information and provide the results, or is there some recommendations of any sort, or?
Well, Mr. Chair, the goal of this is that they're going to be reporting it on February 1st, and in conjunction with the work done by the task force, and as we look at really understanding what our need is to re-engage the idea of career and technical education, this is going to supplement what the task force has already been doing as we kind of set the table for the next year. And I think this was, in my mind, when I looked at what the task force had, kind of the final piece to help us really have a rounded picture of all the aspects of what we need to really re-engage in. So what schools have adequate shop space and adequate shop equipment? What schools have adequate family and consumer science space and equipment? And who's offering programs going down to the 6th grade level? Or maybe they don't have the funding to do that, so that'll be part of what we need to know. So it really gives us that kind of right on the ground understanding of what the real state is, district by district.
Very good. Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Representative Isaacson. Thank you for bringing this forward. I am a co-author on this bill. I do have a couple questions, and I probably should have asked you this before, but you mentioned what equipment are they using. Is it what equipment are they using or what equipment they own?
Representative Isaacson.
That's a really good question. It should have been owned.
Okay.
Because I know there are some schools that have mothballed of some of their career and technical education, and it should be an assessment of using and or own. That's my fault, and we'll have to fix that.
Okay.
Representative Bernardi.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Thanks. And then the other thing is, will you be taking an inventory of the types of college credits that students are able to earn, and also certifications and actually degrees that students, would that be part of the inventory?
No, that's part of the discussion I had with Representative Breinert, that we're trying to avoid duplicative tasks, and Representative Breinert already has, in the task force, has been working on that side of it. I just simply want to know if you're working with the school for the purposes of understanding where you're getting your resources at. Right? I'm not getting into the credits or any of that stuff just yet. We're staying strictly on an assessment level.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Representative Slocum.
Mr. Chair, I was going to ask Representative Isaacson, how does this partner with the MDE work group that on career and technical education? But it was pretty much answered, so I'm good.
Very good. Thank you. Representative Hertaus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Isaacson, you and I have had conversations about this going back to the beginning of last session. And, I think it's worthy to do a study or make an assessment of what the assets are and the resources are out there. But I had earlier questioned you, and I guess I would ask you to comment again. It seems like with regard to the technical education and the opportunities that we might be pursuing in terms of creating more opportunity to fill some of those trades and skilled jobs that you're talking about, it appears that this request in terms of a lot of different areas within the content of the study group is inclusive of a lot of things that perhaps, at least in my perception, don't fall within the technical training or technical skills. Researching finance and some of the other communication science and whatnot. I understood from our conversation we've had in the past that part of this effort was to really provide those manufacturers and provide those types of skilled jobs and part of the pursuit of the world's best workforce to fulfill all components of the workforce and not just the most technical computer sciences and those types of occupations.
Representative Isaacson.
Representative Hertaus, first of all, I have enjoyed our conversations. They've helped me immensely. Second of all, I think you're right that in the beginning my focus was pretty narrow, but what I have learned as all good ideas seem to evolve a little bit. I've learned that my concern became a little bit broader than just technical, although that's a piece of the pie. We need to get away from this concept that you're either doing a 4-year degree or you're off to the side. You're either liberal arts or something else. And we need to re-engage the idea that either when you go into the idea of post-secondary, there is a whole suite of options. And so this list came from a study that Lisa Larson, the policy analyst, would that be the right title? House Research, showed me on a previous study that had been done that kind of listed all the variety of programs that exist that encompass all the possible or within reason career options we could have, of which the technical side is part of it, but that it turns out there's a whole other suite of options we could be looking at for folks and providing that. So we need to know what are they doing right now. So if we decide to go in that direction, I didn't want it to be a deal where I said, well, let's just look at shop classes, family consumer science, and computer science, and then find out that there's these other things we could have been doing. And gosh, I wish I'd asked that question at the time.
Representative Hertaus.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Isaacson, how do you think that the current vocational technical school system and their facilities, their knowledge, their training, and their inner relationship with high schools and whatnot, I mean, wouldn't a lot of this data maybe be available already? I mean, wouldn't they have knowledge of that?
Representative Isaacson.
Do you mean, do the current career and technical schools at the community college level have a lot of this information? Not to my knowledge, and if it is, it's probably pretty siloed regionally, and that'd be my concern, and that we would see Century College be siloed around its specialty area, but not any other areas in that area. So like Central Lakes has really got a big manufacturing CNC machinery presence, but how are they doing in the areas that might be medical technology or things like that? And so I think that there is some potential to tap them for some of the information, but if we want a complete grasp, we've got to go right down to each school district and ask them.
Representative Hertaus.
Well, thank you. And as mentioned to you before, I look forward to continue working with you on this effort.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is for Mr. Cordy.
Mr. Cordy.
So, Mr. Cordy, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cordy, is the course catalog completed yet?
Mr. Cordy.
Mr. Chair, Representative Erickson, I believe the Common Course catalog is completed. I should check on that for you. I guess I'm not 100%.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Cordy, would not, if it's completed, these courses be a part of that Common Course catalog?
Mr. Cordy.
Mr. Chair and Representative Erickson, that would be part of the analysis to go through the existing information that we already have. I think to get down to the level that Representative Isaacson is talking about doing, where you're talking about specific offerings and what equipment exists out there in the schools, is significantly more detailed information than what we have at hand. But as far as some of the course offerings that exist, I think we do have kind of a grasp on that, but maybe not as well of one as we would like to.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And please check on that, Mr. Cordy, because I was told that it is not completed yet, and it should have been because it's been a long time coming. But I think Ms. Montano told me that. Thank you.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question regarding the expenditures. I was also a co-author, Representative Isaacson, and I like the idea and the concept. I believe in it. At the time, I think when I signed, I wasn't aware there was a cost to it. So I'm just, if you could elaborate to you or Mr. Cordy about the cost, the employee, the FTEs, how many is, I see it's a one-time allocation, is that correct? And then also, Representative Isaacson, is it already in the omnibus bill, the cost, the appropriations for your bill, or is that just your amendment?
Representative Isaacson. Ms. Johnson, let's have her answer that.
Mr. Chair, we do have a portion included in our line items, but we don't have any. We haven't nailed down this specific number yet.
There's not a number yet.
Just to be clear, when we first put this bill together, the price tag was considerably higher, and Kathy Breinert was was all on top of that. And so we were able to narrow down the bill to be much more focused, and in doing so cut it in half, the price in half. And so I just want to give you a little bit of the history that we hadn't had a price tag yet on what you're talking about, but we knew there would be some price tag, and I apologize if I did not mention that sooner. That would be my mistake. But perhaps Mr. Cordes could
Mr. Cordy.
Sure. Mr. Chair and Representative McDonald, it would fund 2 half FTEs, so basically 2 people for half of the year to do the work that's in here, and then there would also be some additional funds for travel expenditures and technology costs and the cost of preparing the report itself.
Representative McDonald.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Cordy. Is it, and this is your bill, Representative Isaacson, so I presume that you did the homework, and I trust, I guess, to that point, but is it necessary, did you find it necessary in your bill to have the employees, new full-time employees or even half-time, do the work necessary to travel to the schools rather than count on perhaps the educators at the various districts?
Well, Representative Isaacson.
Thank you for that question. We did look at a variety of options, and when meeting with the Department of Education, some different examples were given, like setting up a portal and putting out a survey and saying, tell us everything, answer every question and put it back into the portal and collecting the data that way, or having an individual that would travel to the sites. I can't imagine, and I'm not sure I can speak to you directly, but I don't believe the intent was to have somebody that goes to every single district and sits and counts. Perhaps more to answer questions about what the count is going to be. But my intent in this was to provide some support, because I believe that the Department of Education is already taxed, and I didn't want to speak for money that we had already passed, that to give them some support going forward, that they were able to take care of whatever the need was to answer the question. So in my mind, when I left it up to them to help me understand what would be the best way for them to do it, they came back with a proposal that said 2 part-time folks that we're going to, or half-year folks that we're going to take on this project and report back. And again, it was a one-time thing. There wasn't any base adding to this at all.
Representative McDonald.
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Representative Isaacson. Then a question for Mr. Cordy. Is it necessary, or is it the plan that some employees from the MDE would travel to the school districts to assist them, or could you elaborate on that particular procedure?
Mr. Cordy.
Mr. Chair, Representative McDonald, I think that would only be in cases where we were asked to come out and kind of help the district do the evaluation or do their assessment. It wouldn't be something where we would have, be traveling to every single district to do it for them. It would be an assistance mechanism that would be in place for districts to help them conduct these assessments.
Representative Mariani.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'm glad that the committee members are diving in deep on this, because I think we need to dive deep on career and technical education in our state. We've really let that languish for quite a while. Other states are kind of getting the cue. There's a big battle in California over this, where California used to really lead the nation in terms of career and tech opportunities, and they really sacrificed those efforts. But instead of just coming back on what we were doing 20, 30 years ago, we're trying to move forward in a way that makes sense in the 21st century. And so I think that the kind of careful inventorying, look at what we have in terms of capacity in the state makes a lot of sense. And what I like about this bill is that it only chews off on one particular piece here. We've got the larger group that's working on the alignment issues that have been mentioned here before. And I picked up, Mr. Chair, kind of your beginning, your early question, because I think you're really consistent about this, making sure that we don't do work that we don't require our local school districts to incur all sorts of hardship and extra work for work that we need to have happen so that we can fashion statewide policy frames. And so I think it is smart to do this one-time investment so that the Minnesota Department of Education, working on our behalf, can do that. Oh shoot, there was one other point I was going to make about this. So anyway, I think that's a responsible way to go about gathering the information. Oh, I know. Mr. Chair, periodically we hear from all sorts of members from both sides of the aisle. We even heard a little bit today particular program, particular school district, and they want a state investment in it. Small requests, we think those are wise investments. But really, honestly, are we making those decisions based on a big framework, a big understanding of what the total capacity is around the state? And so I think, we clearly have an interest in making those kind of investments, but let's make them, with a big guiding vision here. And I think part of that is making sure that we've got some real nuts and bolts information about what is the capacity level currently in our state to deliver this kind of education statewide, so that we understand where the gaps are and we can plan accordingly over a long period of time. So I'm glad that grilling you, Representative Isaacson. That's our job, but I think you've got a very smart approach here.
Thank you. Representative Perpich.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we've heard it in the last couple of committees, and this probably wouldn't be a very expensive thing to ask, but I think we could settle this issue once and for all. If you would add in the questionnaire, we should just really find out how many silk stockings we really do have in this state. So thank you.
Very good.
Mr. Chair, do people wear silk stockings?
We're not going there, Representative Isaacson.
If I just let that go, I'm letting it go. Okay.
Is there anyone in the audience who would care to testify for or against House File 2861?
Thank you, sir.
Representative Isaacson, any last comments?
I just really appreciate you guys' time today, and I want you to know that my commitment on this is that when we take the look forward, that we have the information we need to make good financial choices, and I think that's the intent of where this bill is coming from. So, again, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you, Representative Isaacson. Chair will lay over House File 2861. Next, Representative Sawatzky, House File 2693. And Representative Newton, would you care to move House File 2693?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I move House File 2693.
Very good. Representative Sawatzky, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Good evening. This is, I'm Mary Sawatzky, and this is House File 2693. And I bring it forward as a result of the 2013, I should say, Special Ed Caseload and Rule Alignment Task Force, which met in the past 6 to 8 months, 7 times. And they were to align the rule in with statute for special education in the special education realm. And so this membership advisory task force had 16 people involved, and they are proposing to make this as an expedited rulemaking process rather than the standard rulemaking process. And I believe you have the fiscal note in front of you, maybe.
Mr. Chair, Representative Sawatzky, we do not yet have the fiscal note completed.
Okay.
We've gotten a preliminary estimate on what we think the rulemaking costs would be.
So, Ms. Johnson, what do we got plugged in there right now?
Between 20 and 40 million, or 20 and 40,000.
Yeah. 20 and 40,000.
Well, that's better than what I have, so we'll go with hers.
And members, on some of these items on, like the Representative Isaacson bill and Representative Sawatzky's, an author's amendment will clarify that, but right now we're trying to zero in on what the actual costs might be, so. Yeah, and so that's what we're trying to, that's why we're asking some of these more pointed questions to try to get down to the details on some of this. So. Okay.
Okay.
Please proceed.
So with that, I would entertain or any questions that you might have.
All right. Any questions for Representative Sawatzky? And again, I'm looking at where the costs might be and what's all going to be involved. And
may I refer to the department to help me out with that?
So if the department would want to, Ms. Hermanson, thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Rose Hermanson, Department of Ed. I worked with this task force, and the preliminary fiscal note was what our staff provided. What they do is they work from kind of a standard format depending on the type of rulemaking, and I think they get that from MMB. If it's expedited or expedited, it's much less in cost, and most of the changes that are being recommended are more technical in nature, but there are going to be several changes, and we would, the information I sent to the representative and also your staff kind of laid out where they might be. We do think it'll probably be closer to the 20,000, but if we get a request for more information from individuals, that could expand. But at this point, this is our best estimate as to what it would cost.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone in the audience who would like to testify for or against House File 2693? If not, Representative Sawatzky, anything further?
I think that this will make life a lot easier for special education teachers out in the real world, where we call in to see statute one way or rule another way and get kind of confused. And so it'd be nice to have that alignment in place and that we don't have to bother the department with tedious questions.
Thank you very much. The chair will lay over House File 2693. All right, Representative Sawatzky, we have House File 2568. Would anyone care to move that? Representative Selcer moves House File 2568. Representative Sawatzky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for hearing House File.
And Representative Sawatzky, you do have the A5-1 amendment.
Yes.
Representative Selcer will move the A5-1 amendment, and we'll get it into the proper form. Any discussion on that? If not, all those in favor of the A5-1 amendment, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails. The A5-1 amendment is adopted. Representative Sawatzky.
Thank you for accepting that. That was to tighten up some of the data piece for confidentiality after we left Representative Holberg and Representative Scott. So that's great to have that in this bill. This session is a streamlining session, working on paperwork and, as the governor has coined it, to streamline and make things more efficient. And as a special education teacher for the past 29 years, there's been a lot of changes in the area of special education, and this bill aims to uphold the integrity of the entire special education due process. And so just to give you a little bit of background on where we're going with this bill and the appropriation of the $1.7 million that has already been awarded or appropriated to MDE. But looking at, again, from the summer and the fall when the task force met, the can of worms was opened again, and it is just such a beast of the paperwork and the redundancy of the due process that I felt that we needed to open this can of worms again and see what we were doing with that $1.7 million and how that was being used effectively and for helping the school teacher, the special ed teacher, spend more time with the students rather than working on paperwork. Or we all know that our heart and our mind do two different things, and our heart wants to be with the kids, but our minds know that we need to get the paperwork done within the timelines. And so this isn't going to solve every problem today. This is just the start of an online statewide system. And by no means would I ever assume that this is going to be the end-all final answer to the paperwork reduction and the redundancy concerns that we have in special education. But would like to have, if the department hasn't progressed too far down the road, to do something that will be the start of an impact on the school systems across the state of Minnesota, so that we could have a system where we're reducing the redundancy, that there are consistent forms throughout the state of Minnesota, so that when a family moves from one city to another, one district to another district, that it's a user-friendly document, and this is a contract, so the contract is user-friendly for the parent as well as the school systems, that we are able to facilitate this whole uniform system, which would help with the compliance issues that we have on the other end when we do have, when we're being monitored by the Department of Education. Also provide a better, meaningful college experience for student teachers that are interested in going into the field of special education, but they could be trained in their college environment, and then when they're actually placed in the school sites, that it's a flawless, seamless system, and we're not backing up and teaching something that they should have been or could have been taught. Presently, I believe the state of Minnesota uses about 7 different systems, and they're probably all good. I like my system, but I don't know if it's the best system. And so this way, maybe we could get the best of all systems into one statewide system. And just also to it was interesting, right before Christmas, with the help of Education Minnesota, we sent out a questionnaire, and I'm just going to give you 2 highlights of the frustrations or the feedback that we got from special education teachers. And 98.4% of special education teachers are moderately to extremely frustrated with paperwork. And then when we asked teachers what they thought of creating a single system for the state, and 73.3% of the teachers supported such efforts. And so with that, I would what I'm hoping that we can do is use this money in a way to streamline the paperwork. In working with the department, as the bill sits today, we're having some concerns about and some real valid discussions about, is this going to help the system as the bill reads today? And in working with the department, we've come up with some agreement we've agreed to verbally, and would like to let you all know that the system right now, with all the interfacing that we have within the bill, may not be able to work within the structure of $1.7 million, but over the next, for sure, 6 to 12 months, and I would like to continue this discussion into the next session, so that if there are ongoing, and we do need to have this as an ongoing maintenance program. One of the things that I'm frustrated with right now, personally, as a special ed teacher, that when our district wants to improve or change, or we've seen error even in the existing online systems that we have within the district, it takes quite a few months to fix it. And this way, with ongoing maintenance, that we would have that ability to do that relatively quickly. I mean, a school year could be over by the time that we get those fixes done for what we have right now. So with that, I would like to let you know that, and I would like the department to come and reaffirm with you as well that we would like to work together in making sure that the $1.7 million is distributed or reassigned in getting a start for this online system without starting over, without reinventing the wheel. There are systems or programs, infrastructure that we could probably tap into and have a more efficient start to this program. And thank you.
Mr. Cordy?
Mr. Chair, members, thank you. I'd like to thank Representative Sawatzky for all her hard work and bringing us along on this bill. As she mentioned, there was an appropriation last year for us to begin this work, which we have. We were kind of in the consultation phase when session got started, and then this bill started moving along, and we started having more conversations. So to that extent, that 1.7 is still there and is available to use in fiscal 15 to accomplish some of what is being asked by this bill. The way that it's currently written, there would be some ongoing costs in the tails, but as Representative Sawatzky mentioned, we're working on an amendment to take out some of those costs in the tails and make this more of a phased-in approach, where the first phase would be setting up the online IEP system, and bringing that out statewide, and then kind of the next phase, assuming that all went smoothly, would be creating more of a seamless integration between districts, both horizontally between districts and vertically with the department. All those things, would carry an IT cost in the future, so that would have to be debated by a future legislature. But for purposes of this bill, we think that after the amendment, we can get a good system in place moving forward with the 1.7 that's already been appropriated.
Very good. Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Mr. Cordy, will there be one system like our UFARs that all districts can use? Because you've really raised the expectation of special ed teachers. I've heard from a lot of them who are asking, will there be one system? So, will there be?
Mr. Chair, Representative Erickson, there would be one statewide system that would be available for all districts to use. We wouldn't be requiring all districts to use those systems. So if they were working with a vendor that they enjoyed using and didn't want to switch to the statewide system, they could continue to do so. I think moving on, it would be the vision, I don't want to speak for Representative Sawatzky, but the vision of the author to have a one statewide system with seamless integration, but that within the current appropriation really wouldn't be feasible.
And Mr. Chair.
Representative Erickson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And either Representative Sawatzky or Mr. Cordy, will there be fewer items for them to address because that's a grave concern?
I'll take that.
Representative Sawatzky.
Mr. Chair and Representative Erickson, my vision, and with the help of actually a lot of people that Representative Keel and had mentioned and thrown out the carrot that, well, I'll back up. The federal government requires and expects a layer. Mm-hmm. And then we have the state of Minnesota has their layer, and then districts have their layers. And every district has whatever they want. and I think some of those, absolutely, all of those things are important, and the stakeholders across the board needs to be involved in this discussion. We do have access to federal only, which is great to see that we were able to tap into that and see what the federal system has. I would like to streamline as best we can and without hurting any of the children in the process, but I would like to really look at it and whether that's asking for a task force or asking for the experts to come to the table on our own, but to really look at the state of Minnesota and the state statutes that we have and see if everything that is in existence is necessary, and if not, I would certainly like to streamline that as well. So I can't promise anything right today, but my vision is to say, you know what, we need to get these teachers in the classroom and working on technology and learning how they can be good citizens and receiving coping skills that they need because of their disability, and not having the frustration of doing the extra layer of the paperwork that we're expecting our teachers to have. So I don't know if I answered your question really well, but and I would certainly invite you to help us out if you're interested in streamlining those state statutes.
So, Mr. Chair, just one final question. Well, thank you for your answer. I know that our special ed teachers are feeling just a lot of pressure, and they're looking to us to have some reprieve for them. But, Mr. Cordy, when do you think the teachers in the field will be able to use this new online system?
Mr. Cordy.
Mr. Chair, Representative Erickson, I believe it would be, under the terms of the statute of this bill, it would be required for all use of school districts without charge by the 15-16 school year.
Thank you.
Very good. Representative Breinert.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This actually piggies back on the discussion you've been having, but the two issues I heard most frequently after the first hearing of your bill from a number of advocates that came to my office, and I believe they visited your office also, Representative Sawatzky, was one, the unified online system may be a laudable goal, but it won't reduce paperwork. it in itself doesn't address the issue of what forms have to be filed and, so forth. And I think you've kind of, been speaking a bit to that. So they were concerned about not giving false promise on that issue. And then I think Mr. Cordy answered the second point, and that was some of these districts have systems that they're very happy with, and they don't necessarily want to lose them. They're very functional online systems. But I would ask you, in your thinking about this, have you spent time with the state auditor's report? That we I guess, heard in the last year that really, I think, raised some pretty sophisticated questions around the difference between federal and state requirements, and maybe that there's not a simple way to collapse them. So I'd just like to hear your thoughts about that. I realize this is a really big picture thing, and I appreciate you taking it on.
Yep.
Those are some concerns that I heard.
Representative Sawatzky.
Mr. Chair and Representative Briner, you're right. It's a really hard thing to, you're hitting the heart right now, because we probably had 25, 30 people on the task force for 8 months, and it was really hard to, the stakeholders that are there, we just don't see how we can move ahead if we're not looking at we know what we have to have with federal government, and we know that the state has done what the state has done for some reason. But I'd like to open that can up and say, why are we doing these things? Why is, for instance, North Dakota only able, or why do they get to only do federal forms? Or federal requirements. If teachers think, and I'll be the first one to go out and advocate, because this is putting a lot on the line for me as a teacher, because I'm going back there next fall, we're not going to see something immediate. And but I think we need to have a good product, a product that's well thought out, and that's going to work and not have problems with it. And that's going to take time, and it's going to take time to understand what we can refine with the state statutes, and that's going to take legislation again. So it's going to be an ongoing process. And but I think, I don't know, a little bit in the past, knowing that what some districts have done and evaluated some of their paperwork, I think just by having the districts look at what they're expecting to do can be lessened. And so even maybe with that, things are changing. The other piece that I think that is really important, and I don't mean to take more time, but and it's no fault of the department, so I don't want to put, but the frustration, I think, also is within the compliance piece. And when school districts are being monitored, or when we have to look and see if we're in compliance, there's so many different people are human, and the school teacher makes errors, but also when the monitors come out and look, and they're looking for specific things, they have over, 400 things that they're looking at, and it's subjective in a sense, because you might look at these 20 things very harshly, and you might look at something, another 20 things very harshly, and if you can't find it quickly, or we get all these citations. Well, after we look at all the citations, we say, well, here's the answer to this question, here's the answer to that question, here's we didn't do it quite right the way you wanted. But there's a lot of, why do we have to have so much guessing going on? If we need something in this place, then let's put it this place. And my vision for the online system is if you want it this way, and it's okay to write it this way, then let's just have for instance, a drop-down menu, so that it indicates right then and there exactly what the requirements are, instead of guessing where you want a canned response or not a canned response. And I know that I'm talking a little bit of jargon, but it gets frustrating, because when you have cheat sheets to do this form, and then and another cheat sheet to know how to do another form or another section of the IEP or the 3-year reeval, it just seems like there's got to be a different system here that is more efficient. And so I guess it's an ongoing situation.
Representative Woodard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just two quick questions. One is just to clarify, Mr. Cordy, I think you said that school districts would not be required to use this, but the bill says by 2017, 2018, they will be required to use this, correct?
Mr. Cordy?
Mr. Chair, Representative Woodard, that is correct. That's the language of the bill.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Cordy. And then just as a follow-up, as the department's looking at this, are you looking at building this from the ground up? I mean, it was mentioned there are several different programs out there. And then I see some head nodding. So as a follow-up to that as well, who is funding that today, and where would that funds go in the future? So the maintenance, we're funding these several different programs, and now we're putting another $1.8 million in, and potentially even more into the future. What's happening to all those appropriations for the several systems we're already supporting?
Mr. Cordy.
Mr. Chair, Representative Woodard, to answer your first question, I think we would explore both possibilities, but in all likelihood, I think we would end up contracting with an existing system that's in place as opposed to building one from scratch. I think that, as Representative Sawatzky mentioned, there's a lot of good systems out there that people like, and no point in kind of reinventing the wheel with that. Regarding your second question, you remind me what your second question was?
Paying for it.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. I'm paying for it. I think that might be, I know Mr. Lindell from the Special Ed Administrators was going to speak. That may be a question better for him, but my understanding is that just comes out of, is it something that's, I'll leave it to him. I think it's something that would be, that the districts pay for. I'm not sure what pot of money it comes out of, though. And so districts would no longer be paying for that. It would be a statewide system.
Representative Woodard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And if Mr. Lindell is going to testify, I will pass that question along to him.
Sounds good. Very good. Representative Wills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Woodard asked a couple of the questions that I already had, because I had noticed that in the language as well, and just wanted to make sure we were consistent and clear on what the language is saying on the requirement there. But I did have an additional question on if this system is getting up and running and teachers are needing to be trained on how it works. Maybe it's a different vendor than they're used to using, or they don't have a system at all until this gets put in place. Would the funding in this bill that's already appropriated cover the cost of training those teachers, or would we need additional dollars? And what do you anticipate would be the need for training?
Mr. Chair, Representative Wills, I don't believe that the $1.7 million appropriation would necessarily cover training or ongoing professional development. I think that was kind of part of what we talked about, is that would generate a cost, and an ongoing fiscal cost, which we're trying to avoid in this bill for purposes of helping the committee meet their target. But I think as the system rolled out, that would have to be something that we would take a look at and see if there would be a need for ongoing training. I guess it would depend, what the system looked like, and to the extent with which teachers were already using that system or a similar system.
Representative Wills.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Cordy. And that's kind of what I thought. I mean, I think it's important to go to an online system, and for districts that are using it, it's certainly helping. And I'm not sure this bill solves the problem, and I know Representative Sawatzky, you said it's a much bigger problem, and this is just trying to address part of it. But my concern going forward would be to make sure that if we are going to have an online system, and if teachers need that training, that we're providing the funding for that, and not just expecting them to figure it out on their own and leaving them helpless to be able to resolve any confusion that they might have with an online system. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to testify for or against House File 2568 as amended? Welcome.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Brad Lundell here tonight representing the Minnesota Administrators of Special Education. I want to thank Representative Sawatzky for coming forward with this bill. We think it's an important first step, and I think I want to stress the first step, as she has said. There's a larger issue at play here. And I think when we talk about compliance statewide, that's an issue that we really have to get our hands around. I think that when we talk about a single system or going to a single system, there's always going to be challenges there. There is skepticism among some MACE members as to we've got a system that we like. Are we going to be able to keep this system? I think those are things that have to be, worked out in the long run. There's some districts that tie their system to their other student system, reporting system. Is this system going to work, going to be able to dovetail with that? And I think those are questions that we want to have a discussion about. I think the larger issue, though, and the one that Mace wants to definitely be involved in, top to bottom, is the overall paperwork issue and the reduction of paperwork. Many of our directors and teachers come from other states, and they always invariably say, you do a lot more paperwork here in Minnesota than we did in the previous state. There gets to be reasons why that happens. I don't know why we hear that the feds come out and tell us that we need to do more here. Well, if that's the case, then let's bring the feds, let's bring the Office of Special Education Policy out from Washington, have them sit and be in this discussion as well. We can't obviously order them to do that, but I think that anything that comes forward really has to look top to bottom as to what are the feds saying, what is Minnesota saying, and then how is that being interpreted and applied? Because I think, as Representative Sawatzky has said, it's very subjective in many cases, and I think we have to look forward and look at all of these things. With that, we certainly want to be part of this discussion. We certainly want to move forward. Representative Woodard, to your question regarding costs, people buy from, say, SPED Forms is, I think, the number one supplier in the state of special education reporting software and others. They can do it both online or not online. Districts buy that. They contract with them to do that because the state requires things to be reported. Now, I don't know on the case of MARS and UFARS, I believe the state, where the difference is, I think the state funds those systems, and you supply, you hire a business manager or accountant or data input people to input data into the UFARS and MARS systems. I think it's a little bit different with special ed because there's a wide range of reporting systems available. But let me amend that. I think that there are various student reporting programs as well that are used that get then to the Minnesota reporting requirements. But I'm not sure on that. I only know the special education end here is that districts buy reporting software, and that they, whether it's software or hardware, or they use that.
Representative Woodard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know if this is for Mr. Lundell or Mr. Strom, but so when we talk about the cross-subsidy issues with special education, is that cost of the software, is that incorporated into that cross-subsidy number?
Mr. Strom.
Mr. Chair, Representative Woodard, the way the expenses for special education are determined are primarily staff-based. So I'm not sure that there's any system-wide costs. I need to double-check with the department on this, but I'm not sure that there's any system-wide costs that are in our formula for reimbursement. It covers some of the contracted costs, but mainly staff costs. But I'll go run over and talk with Mr. Melcher real quick here. But I don't think our special ed reimbursement formula has a place for costs of materials or forms or computer programs.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Is there anyone else here that would like to testify for or against 2568? Mr. Lundell, thank you. Oh, Ms. Spur, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. For the record, Jody Boer with Education Minnesota, and I'll be brief. I know your day has been long. Most of you already know, we've talked to many of you about these efforts, and we just want to go on the record thanking Representative Sawatzky. She really has been a champion on undertaking this huge project. And so we just want to say thank you, and also to let you know that we too have heard from many of our special educators. She mentioned the survey that we did, and most of you that were in policy, we talked about that in greater detail, so I won't go into that. But since this bill has been moving forward, we have had many calls, many emails, a handful with questions about, oh, I have a system that I like, and oh, how is it really going to work? All positive, though. People have been engaged. But I want to leave you with this, and that is that the common theme that we have heard from everyone, even those that have questions, is thank you. Thank you, Representative Sawatzky, and thank you, Legislature, for these people have been talking about this issue, the paperwork, the redundancy, the need to spend more time with their children forever. And I can't tell you how many emails and phone calls, that they say just that very thing, that we have needed to do this, and thank you finally for someone for hearing us. And so we totally support these efforts. Thank you for your time and listening to this, and we look forward to being at the table and bringing special educators to the table as the discussion about the compliance and monitoring factor into, and the training, thank you, as the system is developed. And as we have said as well to our educators, this is the beginning. We do not see this at all as this is going to be the end. The good news is this is the beginning. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Representative Selcer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be very brief, but as a former special education teacher, I just have to thank you, Representative Sawatzky, for bringing this forward and for your vision and for your dedication to make sure that special education teachers are allowed to do what they were trained to do, and that is help these special children rather than be buried under a mound of paperwork. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to testify on 2568? Thank you. Representative Sawatzky, closing comments.
As an 11-year-old, I was riding with my parents down to a basketball game in Canby, Minnesota, and my mother has told me this story that, and I don't recall it, but she said, I remember you looking out the window and saying, I want to work with those kinds of kids, and there must have been some disabled kids walking along the road. Later, when I was in high school, my social studies teacher said, oh, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I want to be a special education teacher, and he said, oh, I hope you like paperwork. And that was back, I graduated in 1979, so I suppose I was about in 70, early 77, 78. And if already then they talked about paperwork, and I think that was I know it was paper and pencil, and not to the degree it is today. So I guess I'm excited to move forward with this and hope that thank you for your support and listening to this bill, and I hope that we can work with our children and make an impact on their lives.
Representative Sawatzky, thank you so much. The chair will lay over House File 2568 as amended. Thank you. Representative Morgan. House File 3188. Representative Morgan, would you like to move your bill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I would.
Thank you very much. Please proceed.
Mr. Chair, House File 3188 provides additional resources on the general education formula to help school districts and provide flexibility to school districts, which sometimes is even more important, to address the particular needs that each school district faces as they work to close the achievement gap and continue to build the world's best workforce. I would like the committee and the chair to know that this bill was drafted before the targets were released, and therefore I understand that the 2% is above the level of the target, but I see that the chair in his infinite wisdom worked with the targets to come up with a number that is still a good number to add to what we gave the districts on the formula last year to work to improve the schools and help meet our goals.
Representative Morgan, thank you so much. Anyone in the audience that would like to testify for or against House File 3188? Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Scott Kronquist with the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, and we want to go on record strongly supporting House File 3188 and thank Representative Morgan for bringing it forward, and you, Mr. Chairman, for hearing it and for including it in the bill that we've seen online. It is the most important funding stream for our schools, and for the reasons Representative Morgan outlined, it provides flexibility, it gets resources out to all your school districts throughout the state in an equitable fashion, and it will help us to start to regain some of that lost purchasing power that we've experienced over the last decade. So we strongly support it. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kronquist. Welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. Grace Kelleher with the Minnesota School Boards Association. I want to thank Representative Morgan for his leadership on this issue. This kind of funding, as Scott alluded to, is critical for school districts. as they look at their own local needs going forward. And I think as challenges increase for school district, this kind of general education funding is really pivotal to the success of our kids. And I want to thank the chairman for including it in his bill. We feel it truly is the biggest priority this year. So thank you all.
Ms. Kelleher, thank you. Welcome to the committee. Good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Gary Amoroso, Executive Director of Minnesota Association of School Administrators. I won't repeat what's already been said, but also want to thank Representative Morgan. While the legislature and governor were very generous to us providing funding during this biennium, it was difficult to make up for the challenges that the state faced financially and the funding that the school districts received the prior decade. And so while we're appreciative that we are receiving dollars this year, that we will be receiving a larger percent next year, it still didn't have the effect of curing all the ills. It helped stop the bleeding from the prior decade, and additional funding that this bill speaks to and what your target speaks to will again be another tool that districts can use as we continue to try and do the best job on behalf of children. So once again, thank you, Representative Morgan. Thank you, Chair Marquardt and committee members for having this conversation. And again, it's something that can help all children in the state, regardless of what their zip codes are. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Amoroso. Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Good evening.
Mr. Chair, members, I'm Roger Arnson. I represent the Elementary and the Secondary Principals Association, and these are the fun bills to get up and thank the author and thank the committee. We do good things with these monies. They matter a lot to us, and every dollar that you gave us last year and the money that we're working on this year, this continues to help in our programs very, very much in what we're able to do. It's hard to tell you with any monies which dollar we're going to use where, but this goes from everything to a ninth grade assistant girls basketball coach, to a teacher, to somebody that's helping with student discipline, to all the way around. It just makes a really big difference. And there's another part of it, too. Money's not the only way you value people, but it is one way. And so when we have more monies in the schools, we're able to pay people somewhat of what they're worth. I do a lot of bargaining with school principals, and I always say the one thing we'll promise is we'd give you back any money we didn't earn. I think the school employees in Minnesota earn every dollar, and this helps us an awful lot, Mr. Chair, and we appreciate Representative Morgan always, and obviously all of the members of the committee as well, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Mr. Arnson. Representative Rep.David.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I just wanted to thank the author for bringing forward this bill. I know it isn't a very difficult one to bring forward, but it's important nonetheless. And I just want to say, 1.5% on the formula each of the 2 years, plus the 1% that's being proposed here, the local optional revenue that we just passed on Friday, the educational advancement revenue that passed in last year's education bill, funding for all-day kindergarten, the youth scholarships and the college tuition freeze. I think that it's evidence that this is the education session, and I hope that there will be many more to come. So again, thank you for your work on this committee, Representative Morgan, and thanks for bringing this bill forward.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Representative Morgan, any last words?
No, thank you.
Very good. The chair will lay over House File 3188. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee.
Final bill of the evening, House File 2681. Representative Selcer, when you get to the table, I'll have you move your bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to move House File 2681.
And Representative Selcer, you have an amendment.
I do, Mr. Chair. This amendment is just to tighten up the language and get it in the order that I'd like to see the bill.
All right. Representative Selcer moves the A1 amendment. Any discussion on that to get in its proper format? If not, I'm going to call for the vote. All those in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. The motion prevails. The A1 amendment is adopted. Representative Selcer.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I was honored, as you know, to serve on the School Facilities Working Group this past summer, and you've already seen the great recommendations that they brought forward to improve the process by which we can adequately maintain our school facilities for our students. One of these recommendations, recommendation number 7, was to streamline the review and comment process, putting more responsibility and decision-making into the hands of our locally elected school board members, while still maintaining accountability. So this bill enacts those recommendations. There are four main parts of the bill. One is to increase the threshold for review and comment from $1.4 to $2 million. The current $1.4 million threshold is very low, including relatively small projects that do not justify the administrative burden associated with review and comment. The second element is to repeal the requirement for consultation for smaller projects. So the current consultation requirement for projects with costs between $500,000 and $1.4 million does not add value to the process. In the opinion of the professionals that served on our school facilities working staff, which included MDE staff, school business managers, and school district facilities managers. The third element is to eliminate the need for review and comment on projects funded entirely with long-term maintenance revenue, lease levy, and operating capital revenue. Projects funded with long-term maintenance revenue and facilities improvement will go through the approval process for those revenues, which provide accountability tailored to the type of project. And finally, the last recommendation was to simplify the required data submissions for review and comments to reduce paperwork, which is a theme tonight, while maintaining accountability. And I do have, Mr. Chair, two testifiers here this evening who'd like to testify briefly, if I could call them up. One is Mr. Paul Bourgeois, who is the Minnetonka school business manager, and also Mr. Mark Bollinger, who is from the Minneapolis schools.
Very good. Welcome to the committee. If you'd please introduce yourself.
Paul Bourgeois, Executive Director of Finance and Operations for Minnetonka Public Schools, and a member of the working group with Representative Selcer. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Just 5 quick points. The paperwork reduction for school districts and Department of Ed is significant with this bill, and it will rationalize work for the common sense items. The $2 million limit is helpful, but it's not an overreach. You can, at current construction costs, you can get 3 to 4 classrooms probably constructed, so you can do an all-day kindergarten addition or early childhood, things like that, but you can't build a gym with it or a large administrative wing or things of that nature. So it is a prudent dollar amount. The old $1.4 million limit was too low. And you could come up with a alternative facility project that might have roofing, paving, and replacing 50-year-old plumbing, and you're over $1.4 million, and you submit a review and comment to the Department of Ed, and they're going, okay, well, yeah, that's what was in your plan, that's fine. But this will eliminate all that type of paperwork. The last point I guess I'll make is there's some real-world dollar savings in this bill that's hard to quantify. But by not having the 60-day time period that is required for review and comment from the time you submit it to the Department of Ed, it means that school districts will be able to get their summer projects ready to go and out to bid sooner. And in the construction world, you have vendors who are doing things for school districts and shopping centers and everything else, and they're getting their book of business ready for the part of the construction season that has more favorable months. And so by being able to get out into the water 60 days sooner, they're going to get lower bids and better prices. The difference between bidding in January and February versus March and April could easily be a 20 to 30% premium if you're later. So this time savings will have real-world benefits to every school district to stretch their dollars. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you very much, Mr. Bourgeois. Welcome.
Welcome, Mr. Chair, representatives, and House staff. Thank you very much. I'm Mark Bollinger, Minneapolis Public Schools. Representative Selcer did an excellent job recapping what the changes in the bill are. And Paul, my colleague, did a great job telling you why we needed those done. I don't have a lot to add other than to stress the support. This is one of the very first things we did in the committee. The committee is a very well cross-represented group that represents school boards, superintendents, business managers, facilities directors, and we work very collaboratively with the Minnesota Department of Education. So No one that I talked to in any of the districts that called and talked to me had anything negative to say about this portion. We did develop a total of 8 recommendations, of which this is one of them, that was to streamline this review and comment process, not at a cost, but at a savings. So tonight, I support, and I ask your support, if you would, to simplify the requirements of the review and comment process so that it maintains accountability, yet it will reduce the paperwork time and cost savings to not only us, but possibly the taxpayers.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that would like to testify for or against House File 2681 from the audience? And then anyone else on? All right, Representative Woodard, and then we'll go to Representative David.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I see Mr. Cordy hasn't left, but I have a quick question that maybe the department is the only person to answer this. But this seems like a great idea. I'm not sure why we're doing this for other projects as well. So the question is, what benefit is the department giving to school districts by requiring this review, by us requiring them to review this at all? And then secondarily, how many people at the department are actually working on this to do all this review and comment for these projects? Maybe Dr. Melcher would be the right
Dr. Melcher is, and Mr. Cordy is approaching.
Certainly sounds like the play-by-play of a golf.
Mr. Chairman, members, Representative Woodard, my name is Tom Melcher. I'm the Finance Director at the Department of Education.
Welcome.
We currently have about half of one full-time equivalent staff who does review and comments on school district construction. We have a couple hundred of them each year, and we have a 60-day turnaround time to do those. Some of the changes in the bill would be things that the commissioner is currently reviewing and then waiving review and comment on, the things that are financed with alternative facilities and so forth. So this would just eliminate a step there. We do think there is some value in doing review and comments. It's been part of our school finance system for many years, and we do have a wide variety of school districts. When a school district is doing a big project, $20 million, $50 million, $100 million, investing a lot of money, I think it's prudent to have some kind of a review to ensure that the school district is building a facility that's of the appropriate size, given their enrollment, their demographics, and so forth, and also that the plan that they have is consistent with the financial requirements. We fairly often do have a little back and forth with school districts in terms of making sure that the financing sources that they have can be very complicated, and we want to make sure that they are using dollars legally for their project, and sometimes it does require some changes. So we're supportive of streamlining this, simplifying it, avoiding a very complex process for very small projects.
Representative Woodard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And so, Dr. Melcher, how much time will this take? Will this allow this half staff? How much time will this take away from them? I mean, will it lessen their workload as a result of this bill?
Dr. Melcher.
Mr. Chairman and Representative Woodard, there will be some reduction in workload. I don't know that it's measurable in terms of, a tenth of an FTE, a quarter of an FTE of time. We do have a lot of backlogs. We've had issues with school districts being concerned about the amount of time that it takes. Sometimes we go right up to that 60-day window, and if we need to get revised, so I think we may be able to turn around those things more quickly and expeditiously if we're able to scale back some of that.
Very good. Representative Dabney. Thank you, Dr. Melcher.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And primarily, I want to just compliment the author. When I'm looking on page 3 at some of the conditions that districts would need to assure they were complying with sustainable design, that's long-term cost savings for taxpayers. I appreciate seeing that there. A little further down, air quality filtration requirements, that goes directly to asthma and the high rate of school absences we get from kids with asthma and buildings that are not healthy for little kids. and also the acoustical performance criteria. School rooms are not always good acoustically, and particularly if we think of students who have some sort of hearing deficit or disability, the sound quality in the classroom can be critical to their being able to receive the instruction. And even for kids without a hearing deficit but with perhaps an attention deficit, the acoustics again can come into play. The only suggestion I might make is back on page 4 where you asked them to consult with appropriate government units. It's all good there. The piece that's missing, I think from a metro area perspective in my mind, is looking at also how the school is cited in relation to mass transit opportunities, whether that's a way for students to get there or for parents to access the school site. You cover walkers and bicyclists, you cover roads, you cover cars and school buses, but as Mr. Bollinger knows well, mass transit is another way to get both kids and parents to school. So I just ask you to consider that. But overall, very thoughtful, and I appreciate the work.
Thank you for those suggestions, Representative Dabney. And Representative Selcer.
I just wanted to thank Representative Dabney for your kind words and also for that suggestion, which I think is a good one. And I know that Representative Isaacson and I are going to be working a little bit too, going to that last point about consultation. Exactly what does that mean, and how can we help local government entities to come to resolutions of some conflicts that may arise as school facilities are planned and built out. And that was a concern, something we were going to work on together.
Representative Bernardi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And since you were making suggestions, this is just being sensitive to people with all abilities. And I know that on line 4.3 that the walkers and, well, I don't know, I was thinking it was walkers and busters might be a cultural thing from school districts, but it talks about white walkers and bicyclists. Just to be sensitive, I think we ought to use the word pedestrians, because not everybody, some people use a wheelchair to move around, and that's a pedestrian. So I just, since we were making suggestions, I thought I would do it out of respect.
Good point. Thank you. Representative Isaacson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Representative Selcer, I think as long as in your amendment you noted documents obligating the school district and contractors to comply, and you listed as one of those the consultation, maybe that will take care of our issue, because now we'll have documents, Mr. Chair, in all of these areas, so hopefully no misunderstandings will occur and no lawsuits occur. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Representative Isaacson.
Thank you.
Representative Selcer, any final words?
Oh, I just want to thank the committee for considering the inclusion of this bill, and this is an opportunity to streamline unnecessary work, free up resources, as has been described, so we can concentrate those on the classroom so we can have the world's best workforce.
Thank you very much. The chair will lay over House File 26 as amended. Members, tomorrow, then, during regular meeting time, we will go through the bill, ask any questions, and we'll also take testimony at that time. We do have a room reserved tomorrow night at 6 p.m. I don't know if we'll need that or not. So, at any rate, and then amendments, then on Wednesday morning, we will mark up the bill. Amendments are due at 2 p.m. tomorrow. 2 p.m. tomorrow for amendments, and then we have the morning again to mark up on Wednesday, and then have the evening if need be. So that's kind of the schedule moving forward. Any questions on that? Representative Woodard, any questions?
Sounds good. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, members. We are adjourned.